creative form of self-expression that connect lives. I'm very happy to invite the chair of this session, Rukmini Vijayakumar. Rukmini is the artistic director of her classical dance company, Radha Kalpa, and director of her art space, Lashwa. She has received the title of Arshakala Bhushanam from the renowned Vedanta teacher, Pujya Swami Dayananda Saraswati. She works with her dance company, Radha Kalpa, and creates ensemble work frequently. She also is developing pedagogy and education system to train Bharatnatyam dancers. A round of applause for Rukmini. The panelists whom I warmly welcome are Jonathan Hollander. Jonathan Hollander is a leading choreographer of his generation. He founded the Battery Dance Company in 1976 and has performed across 5 continents. He has presented Indian dance at the Battery Dance Festival and on national US tours for 25 years. He co-founded New York City's Indo-American Arts Council and was a Fulbright lecturer in India and Malaysia. He was awarded Germany's Federal Order of Merit this year. He has collaborated with renowned artists from India. Among them are Mallika Sarabhai, Rajan, and Sajan Mishra in his productions. Thank you, Jonathan, for joining us. Mira Kaushik. Mira Kaushik is a director of Akademi, a UK-based Indian performing arts company celebrating its 40 years. She is amongst the 100 most influential people in UK-India relations. She has organized some of the most iconic Indian choreographic masterpieces over the past years, including bringing Indian dance onto the steps of Buckingham Palace for the first time in its history. In 2007, she was awarded an honorary order of British Empire for services to dance. She moved to UK in 1982 and still holds her Indian passport. Welcome, Miraji. Sharon Wezer is a consultant, Corso Theatre in Netherlands. She is an on and off stage cultural promoter, working in performing arts with a specialization in Indian fine arts and dance. She works with artists and theaters in programming and community marketing. Wezer is on the advisor board for the Council of Performing Arts in Netherlands. A warm welcome to her. Rukmini, now the floor is yours to take over.
I think whenever people come to visit India or they speak of India, one of the things that is at the foremost in their minds is the art and culture. And many things constitute this culture, and I think one of the largest things that constitute this culture is the performing art tradition. What's unique about India is the fact that every state has a variety of folk forms. Also, we have a variety of musical traditions, and we also have more than 7 or 8 classical dance forms. And every year, every few years, another form is also designated as classical. The beauty of this is also that there's a large amount of specialization that happens with the performers, and each person learns mostly nowadays only one classical form for the entirety of their lives. The complexity and the layering of these forms also proves a very old tradition. The older the art form, the more layered and the more nuanced it becomes. We have the Natya Shastra, which is a text that people contest the dating, but over 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years old. That is a very comprehensive text on dramaturgy. And the fact that a text exists that is so old itself means that there was a practicing tradition before the text was written. that existed for a much longer period before that. Just to give you an idea, some of the first texts in ballet were written only in the 14th and 15th century. And the first text that we have, we don't even know how old it is. It's so old that a large number of people call it the fifth Veda or the Natya Veda. As a performer, I will speak of my experience in short. I have performed in many countries and experienced many audiences. And this is the case for many performers and many, I will say, concert artists, anybody who performs any classical or musical tradition of India. And the idea that art crosses cultures and borders is definitely true. It does cross culture and audiences. I have had people who are not from an Indian origin and not from an Indian background experience and go with me on a journey of emotion and empathy, much like our own Indian audiences. But we also have to remember that this does have its limitations. The aesthetic preferences of a region and a group of people varies from one place to another. Just like you might like classical Hindustani music and your son or daughter might like techno and rap. And each preference is completely valid. There's no right or wrong. And that's just what people like or they prefer. It's also that this idea of our Indian classical tradition is higher than the other. It's not higher, it's not lower, it's just a tradition. It's a movement art, it's a tradition, and there is a certain amount of spirituality interwoven into its roots. So a large amount of the work that Indian artists create come from that base. When we see the mainstream of performance in many countries, Indian performing arts is not necessarily included in all the forums. There are some places that there is more Indian performing art and some places that it doesn't exist at all. There have been successes in this area, and we have 3 people with us today who have been successful in presenting Indian art in their own countries, and each of them have been working toward programming and presenting performers from India or with Indian ideas of movement traditions and performing traditions in their own regions. We're going to talk to each of them, and they're going to tell us about their successes, and each of them have done it in their own way. And it's different. They've had their means and ways, and some of them have worked with producing work, some of them have worked with inviting artists, but people do it in many different ways. As Indians, we do have to be proud of our art and culture, but we don't need to be encumbered by it. And we do have to be proud of our tradition, but tradition is not stagnant. We create our culture, our tradition is moving, it flows like water. I'm going to let our speakers of this afternoon tell us about their work and what they have done and how they have brought Indian art to their regions. We will start first with Mira Kaushik. She's from the UK, and she has done a tremendous amount of work, CBE, a highest award that she's received, and I'm not going to delay further.
Thank you very much. I'm not a CBE. I've got an OBE years ago. Afternoon sessions are generally kind of really sleepy sessions because food was very good. I would like to just know how many people are here from ICCR. Is there anyone from ICCR? Anybody from Ministry of Culture? So obviously, in a session which is to do with culture, 2 major stakeholders are missing. So, greetings. Thank you very much for inviting me to this session. I'm here to share my 30 years of experience of working for Indian art and culture within the European context. I'm director of Akademi, which is also part of the great campaign about which we heard in the morning in UK. Academi is a London-based organization which is funded by the taxpayers of UK, so my work is British, yet rooted in India. It is framed within the ever-evolving artistic, social, educational, and economic context of contemporary Britain, which is currently recovering from the 8 years of austerity and battles of Brexit, which is ongoing for us. So, Academi does not create mini India in UK, but we Indianize the West. So this is kind of really reverse to the way we have been getting westernized. I take India to West and Indianize, and that is the basic principle. But then while working with Indian art in Britain, we are also woven into the tapestry of the creative sector of Britain. So we are not the patch. And so these are two metaphors which kind of really I use. I have a short film which is kind of really edited clips of, badly edited clips of what we have done in recent times. So my apologies for the quality. Can I have film number 1, please? Thank you. Thank you. So, Academi is a unique, creative interface between Indian and British performing arts, celebrating the plurality of dance in all its forms, embracing excellence in classical, contemporary, and popular dance styles from across the regions. Hundreds of years of India's cultural and political association and 40 years of Academi's own existence has led us to believe that we are an intrinsic part of British culture and part of the British creative DNA, the way ballet from Russia or jazz from America has established itself into the local psyche. We inspire and change lives by creating and nurturing excellence in Indian dance. We have taken dance to unexpected, unconventional spaces like underground vaults, forests, museums, hospitals, community centers, Trafalgar Square, Somerset House, Houses of Parliament, to Buckingham Palace. We have redefined the parameters of the art form itself by inspiring audiences, developing arts, and changing lives. So we are a dynamic, future-facing body where Indian dance connects with the wider contemporary art sector, almost a finishing school for young Indian dancers, a springboard for a large section of artists. Our program brings Indian dance to the mainstream attention, capturing the Indian imagination through inspired storytelling and unique spectacles. We create vitally important pathways for the exceptionally talented artists, and every week they are found in heart of the community, creating life-affirming experiences for those who are disadvantaged, disengaged, and isolated. We develop artist, art form, and the use of the art form to connect with the life of UK. We do have a thriving commercial arm as well, which create some amazing, exclusive, entertaining experiences. I would like to state that over last 3 years, we have reached live audiences of 190,000 people with 151 performances, delivered 339 workshops with 7,500 attendees, and provided 300 plus artist development opportunities. Sorry, these facts are being given by my team to me. So while thinking about this conference, I needed to be clearer about the purpose of asserting a soft power to the world, since there would be different solutions to different situations. So from gaining borderless mind space to asserting our foreign policy or cut terrorism within the framework of our culture, value, and inherent knowledge and wisdom, we would need a variety of strategies for the global platform. And at this time, I would specifically like to share my one particular experience of producing Usne Kaha Tha, The Truth, which was created this year, and I brought to India as part of my India strategy. So you just have to think about me, an Indian national, sort of really sitting in Britain and creating an India strategy. And this strategy celebrated 70 years of our independence, centenary of World War I, Indian cinema, and the story of Usne Kaha Tha, which was written by Chandradhar Sharma Guleri 100 years ago in Jaipur. Can I just have the second footage, please? As I said, Usne Kaha Tha is an Indian story written 100 years ago by Chandradhar Sharma Guleri. This is the greatest love story of an Indian soldier who served in World War I. 60,000 Indians of undivided India died 100 years ago, saving Britain. And to mark our contribution, I decided to pick up this story and create a British contemporary show. It was not an Indian show, it was a Western contemporary show, which was performed like a living, silent, black and white film with Hindi subtitles. Now, how did I do that? This was a British product created for the specific Indian market. India is one of the biggest markets for the global business and UK trade and investment. And they had set up a reimagined India funding pot to enhance their soft power. So this was an add-on, actually, to the great campaign. Reimagine India sort of happened as part of the 70th anniversary of our independence. Thank you. So in collaboration with British Council, which partly funded this project, I was also fortunate to bring several trusts and foundations, Indian Council for Cultural Relations, and I've discovered that the Vice President of ICCR is seated here. So, hello, sir, or madam. Or ma'am, hello, namaskar, welcome. So thank you very much for coming on board. ICCR, Ministry of Culture, 3 Indian state governments all came on board to tour this show. It was premiered at the Jaipur Literature Festival in the courtyard of Hawa Mahal and had its finale at the Rashtrapati Bhavan on 13 February in front of the members of the cabinet and 100 war veterans. Eventually, this show was picked up by the British Army, and we are still touring UK on behalf of the Army to speak about India's contribution in World War I. So I think this was one of the best examples or best experience of any kind of diplomacy, internal or external, for me to engage with, where, you know, such a wide range of partners came on board. And this show has already won 3 global mainstream awards for its artistry. I have been invited by several business platforms to talk about this experience, about how to successfully reach Indian second-tier cities on their own cultural terms in Britain. So to back it up now, I would like to suggest the reverse to this gathering on what India could learn from the small and humble experience what I have. I think we need to study and compare our cultural solutions and strategies with the other competitors, especially China and now Pakistan, which has become more active, more culturally active with its new leadership. We do our honest SWOT analysis and be professional in dealing with our weaknesses, as well as be smart in celebrating our strengths, turn our threats into opportunities, and milk them. Awareness and empathy with what already exists in India and current global trends. Make effort to establish partnerships with relevant players by utilizing our existing resources better. Strategic thinking, research is needed. Make better use of the existing bodies like National School of Drama, Repertory, where investment is already gone. ICCR and Cultural Ministry need to really work together with private and public collaborations to be very clear about which brand of India is being marketed. Maybe across the ministries, but focus on quality, training, excellence, and investment. Digitization, we have talked about. Do few things better, well in a consolidated form to reflect our ambitions. Communicate and engage more with the people working outside India to promote. I'm pitching myself and all of us actually. By creating a database and regular engagement with us. Vision with a focus to regularly train and support the team responsible for implementation of the vision. I've realized that there is very little investment done internally to train the staff and to train the human resource what we have, which is engaging in implementation of the cultural. I mean, diplomats are brilliant, but their support staff needs to be looked after as well to enhance. Indian dance and cultural sector is generally run by monasteries established by gurus in a cottage industry form. I would like to suggest, and this is my last suggestion, is that professionalization of the creative world through investment in its product, i.e., I would like to recommend a state-run dance or repertory company or a national school of dance is required. India has National School of Drama, National Institute of Design, National Film School, but there's no National School of Dance. We do have organizations which deal with specific art forms, but one holistic vision to actually to be invested to really upgrade the experiences what we are together creating. Just towards the end, I would like to say that the Tourism Board of India has got some fabulous films edited which are floating around selling one India to the world. And then they are kind of really juxtaposed against less professional dance work, which is kind of sent by different stakeholders from here. So I would like to end with 1 minute worth of film, which is kind of really a fun film, which my education department created for health and well-being, and food was a major part of that project. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can you bring up the first slide for my slideshow? Hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan Hollander. It's a real honor to be here. I was so thrilled with the invitation. I had the pleasure of living in India with an Indian family when I was 16 years old. And I was introduced to Indian dance almost before I was really introduced to Western dance. India has given me so much. And when I think about soft power and think about the power of India in the world, something that I don't think has really been focused on today or yesterday enough, and that's the Indian people. The Indian people are the greatest resource of this country, and I've experienced the generosity, the warmth. Thank you. So to segue from the people, we segue to the art form of dance, which everyone can do without any props or training. Everyone can dance. And so there's a universality about our art form, and that's why I think the translation into a tool of cultural diplomacy is so natural for dancers. In New York, we benefit from the fact that dancers come from all over the world to study dance. I'm not sure actually why New York continues to be the magnet that it is, because it's so unhospitable in terms of the cost of living and the lack of space. Nonetheless, dancers come, and it's been my pleasure to see, since 1992, what can happen when Indian dancers meet the American public. And we're going to show you some slides. This is actually a production that I made called, in America, the Durga Project, not about the goddess Durga, but about Rag Durga. I was speaking about generosity of Indians. I was given the use of recording, a brilliant recording by Rajan and Sajan Mishra, the great Hindustani musicians. Let me use their Rag Durga, which was the sort of jumping off point for this production. When we brought it to India last year, in January, we performed in Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, Kolkata, and New Delhi, and the ICCR was the very generous supporter of that project, the main supporter, and the US Embassy chipped in as well. You see in this picture an Indian dancer dancing with American dancers, and this was an experiment. This was sort of the result of many years of working cross-culturally, and we brought Unath Hassan Ratnaraju to New York. He worked in our studio for a month. We began to generate material, and this production came out of it. It has toured Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, the cities in India that I mentioned, and many cities across the United States. So in a way, it's a reverse soft power diplomacy, because we were bringing an American company embracing Indian music, embracing Indian dance, invigorating the form in our own way. Let's continue with the slideshow. Here's the clicker. So. I don't know whether anyone gets the New York Times online here or in the copy, but this is the illustration for the best dance of 2018. And you see Kantika Mishra, one of the largest figures there. Now I want to take you back to when I began presenting Indian dance in the United States 20-some years ago, when I was speaking to editors of newspapers in Houston or Washington or different cities in the United States, and I would say, we're bringing this fabulous dance company from India. We'd love you to write a review and give us preview. And they said, well, we really don't know enough about the form, so we can't write about it. And now we have Alistair Macaulay giving 2 Indian dancers out of 10 the best performances of 2018, and in 2017 there were 3 Indian dancers. So again, it's been mentioned, but I want to say this again. India has 8 classical dance forms. There is no other country in the world that I think of that has more than 1, if that. So there you have the resource that Jonathan was talking about this morning. The resource is here. And I will also say, since I was a Fulbrighter in 1992 and I sort of went around the country and met many dancers, between 92 and today, the rise of dancers, male and female, across this country is extraordinary. The talent, the passion, the variety is remarkable. So the resource is growing, and it needs avenues and channels to get out professionally, which Mira was talking about. That I would say that the funding mechanism here and the means to go abroad is almost random. And I think it's not going to be hard with all the intelligence in this room and in this country to just apply some professional standards to the process. I want to give you just an overview of some of the programs that we brought to the American audience over the years. This was this summer. Sound, please. Does everybody know what dance form that was? Pardon me? Yes, yes, thank you. I was just doing a little test. This is Rama Vaidyanathan in one of her first performances in New York in Battery Park. These programs are under the auspices of Battery Dance Company. We're a humble dance company, but we also present what has become New York's longest public dance festival, and we have audiences of 2,000 people every night coming to the shores of the Hudson. You saw the Statue of Liberty in the background. It's just a remarkable place to be in the summer in New York. And that's a typical audience. And you see that it's, you know, totally mixed in terms of age, in terms of ethnicity. So speaking to what Mira was saying, not just talking, Rukmini as well, not just speaking to the Indo-American community, but speaking to everyone. I wonder who that is. Rahul Acharya. Bhagashri Vaze, who's based in Canada, actually, but obviously Indian Kathak dancer. In the front is Janaki Patrick, who was at Swarthmore College, one of our most prestigious liberal arts colleges in the United States, as a Russian major. And Birju Maharaj came and did a lecture demonstration at her college, and her life was changed in an instant. She became a Fulbright scholar, came and studied at Kathak Kendra, and has been performing and presenting Kathak dance for decades. The Kathakali group, I should ask you all to just shout out the names of these dance forms. We've got some ringers in the audience. That's Pallavi Krishnan, and she actually, this was her premiere in the United States, and she was absolutely extraordinary. From Rajasthan, Kalbelia. Kathak Sanjukta Sinha. On the left, Swapna Sundari. On the right, Kuchipudi. On the right, your right, yes, Vijayalakshmi, Mohiniyattam also. Mayurbhanj Chow, Rakesh Saibabu. He'll be in the hotel tomorrow in case you want to meet him. He's a fabulous dancer. This is a form, I mean, it's really interesting because Chow has come up recently into, you know, I wasn't even aware of it until he came. And now it's really becoming one of a lexicon of movement that's fascinating, the mixture of martial arts and dance. Carolina Prada, I believe she's from Spain, And she's, pardon me? Pardon me? No, she's Mayurbhanj Chow also. This group is from Malaysia, Odissi dance, Sutra dance theater. Interestingly, Ramli Ibrahim is a great ambassador of Indian culture as a Malay Muslim. He's gotten the highest award that an artist can get in Malaysia. Manipuri, and Darshana Javeri in the red. I had the pleasure and remarkable, enlightening experience of sitting on the floor in the living room of the Javeri sisters in 1968 in Mumbai, and they inculcated me into the art form of Manipuri, and then I was able to return the favor and bring them here. Here being New York. Kuchipudi. This is Avijit Das, who's a rising star. He got a phenomenal review in the New York Times. Kathakali. Prabal Gupta. You all know what this is, right? That's right. And that is always a great crowd pleaser. We have an everybody dance now at the end of one of our programs, and of course Bhangra is a great one to use. Everybody wants to jump on the stage and join in. These are just give you an example of the attention in the New York Times, which of course is the most important newspaper in New York and in the United States. Financial Times, New York Times, Huffington Post, all reviews of Indian dance. And then, like Mira, we bring these artists into the public schools. This is Anuj Mishra doing lecture demonstration for Kathak, and this was a very unruly school, a public school in New York, and the students were making a lot of noise until he stamped his foot on the floor the first time. And then everybody jolted, and then he had them in the palm of his hand from there on. There was one student in the school who was Bengali, and he just was so proud. This is Unath H.R. Hassan Ratna Raju, whom you saw with our company. We also brought him into the school's Bharatnatyam. And this is just a quick list of some of the artists who we've presented over the years. I think there are over 80. And a cross-section. So how can you go wrong as a presenter of dance? I mean, it's just this wonderful rainbow of styles, of talent, the rhythm, the melodies. It's just exquisite. So I think that this resource needs to be used, and again, some suggestions that investment be made on the national level, on the state level, to support the institutions that are coming up, that are training dancers. I went to this smaller city of Hassan, where Unath has set up a school, and he has 175 students. And they start at age 4 or 5, and they're going straight through. This is a historic situation, but it's brought into the present. And he's bringing culture back into his city in that way. So I'll just end, and thank you for giving me the opportunity, and just to say that keep it coming.
We'll now have Sharon.
Can I use this mic? Because thank you, because then I can walk. Okay. So if I can have my presentation. I hope it's working. Otherwise, I'll just
So I have Indian Dance Europe is an organization that I founded to work with different kinds of organizations in the Netherlands. And I just wanted to quickly just say something, not to talk about too much about myself, but how I started to get interested in dance, because that's usually where it happens for all dancers. At a very young age, I started to learn different kinds of dance forms. Started with ballet and contemporary dance, like most people in the Netherlands actually. And then I discovered Indian dance. And when I had to make a choice about what I would focus on, the richness and the depth and the content, because a lot of dance styles are about form, but the content that was embedded in these dance forms, whether it's folkloristic or more classical, really did something to me that if I had to make a choice, I would stay. Something clicked, and with most things in arts, once that click comes, it hardly ever goes away. Also contemporary dance and Bharatnatyam. And when we talk about what the additional value is of Indian classical dance styles, I think especially in the reference to the Netherlands, where contemporary dance, a very aesthetically form-related dance, this content, the narrative aspect, the stories that you bring, a means of telling other new different stories, is very interesting to reach new audience. So I work in the Netherlands. What I basically do is I work in the intersection of programming and publicity in the Netherlands. Indian Dance Europe, and one festival that I will highlight is India Dance Festival. That's a festival that presents a lot of Indian dance, both from India as well as local artists. And I work in marketing and publicity, both in Indian dance and for a theater company. So this intersection is really what defines how I work, which is good to know when you place all the different people of the panel here to know that. Not clicking. Oh, yes. So with the India Dance Festival, that's a very big festival in the Netherlands. It started out as Holland India Festivals with a branch for music, cinema, and dance. And with cinema, the festival's no longer there because it's now been incorporated in regular programming in the film house cinema in The Hague. So that festival's no longer there, which is usually a big goal to have it embedded in the main programming. But for music, it's still there, and for dance also. Some artists that we had on the left, it's Tari Dilu by Malavika Sarukai, which was the last edition, in which ICCR actually helped also. Gauri Divakar came, for example, for Kathak dance, and some artists that we're planning to have this season are Parshvanath Upadhyay for Bharatnatyam and Janaki Rangarajan. There are many more, but it's just a glimpse. So I wanted to share with you, when we talk about how to present this culturally related dance form that has a very strong context to a new audience, what worked for us in the Netherlands, I don't know if it would work exactly in your country for your respective fields, but I thought I'd present it as a best case scenario for how it worked for us, is juxtaposing the classical form in its traditional context with a more contemporary productions. And for example, on the right, there's the Bharatnatyam couple Ranjit and Vijna. They're based in Chennai, and they're very upcoming Bharatnatyam couple. And they presented a show where there was both classical and contemporary. And another thing that helped with us with introducing wider audiences to Indian dance is, for example, Shailesh Bahoran. He's of Surinamese descent. I just want to ask, how many of you know the country of Suriname? A few. It's very important because when we talk about the Indian diasporic community, which is a great carrier of the Indian culture and arts, a lot of the Indian diasporic community are based in the West Indies and South America. And Suriname has a lot of different cultures. Actually, it's very interesting. When someone says, I'm Surinamese, you can still be many things. And the Surinamese Hindustani community, as we call the community there, the diaspora community, is over 25% of Suriname. And it's actually about 27. And a lot of them came to the Netherlands, so a lot of people of Indian descent come from this double migration and have these additional stories to tell. So what Shailesh Boharan did is made with a language that he speaks, which is actually urban dance. He's not an Indian classical dancer, but he works with the themes of his history and both the themes of Indian culture in broader sense, and works with that to present it to the local audience, which is also a very successful way. So we see here this juxtaposing of traditional classical with something that is more locally related. In form, contemporary dance, because contemporary dance is quite big actually in the Netherlands. One of the big contemporary dance companies, Nederlands Danstheater, is based in The Hague, or in form of content, not forgetting the roots and the tradition. That's very important. Visibility in print media, getting press, it's growing each year. In the beginning, it was a little bit difficult because one of the things that we also heard is, well, we don't know a lot. We don't know a lot to program it, to present it, let alone to write about it, either in pre-publicity or giving reviews. And that's growing actually a lot. I can't play this from here. Can someone press the link for me? It's a video link. It will go to YouTube, I hope. I won't show the entire 7 minutes. Just a few. This is actually the. So this is these are two local artists in music, Lenneke van Stalen, and actually he's a tabla player. Can we stop and now go back to the presentation? Because actually they did the same thing for Abhinay. So what we also do here is whenever we have press and media to share something about the background. This was a very small rhythmical presentation. And again, we connected with local artists. Lenneke van Stalen is a very renowned violinist, also specialized in classical music. And Heiko Dijker is a tabla player. The actual performance was done with the Miridangam, of course. But for this program, we connected with both the artists from India and some local, very renowned artists to present it. So what this festival has done is it's created a national platform to show Indian dance more with these both facets. And it's grown each year. It's been around for 8 years, and for the last edition, there were about 5,500 people. And also, the audiences keep getting more and more diverse, just like at the Battery Dance Festival. In the beginning, it used to be the Indian diaspora community mostly because they were more familiar, and they're also mostly based in The Hague, where this festival also takes place. But now, with more press, and visibility in national media, and also a little bit more knowledge. People started to get to know more about the form. The audience has become more diverse. So in presenting it, this is a form that has worked for us. It may work in your respective countries, or maybe you would have another kind of strategic way to present it. One last thing, I just want to check how many minutes I have left. Or can someone tell me? Okay, yeah. because this is another thing that I wanted to highlight. We of course have the national platforms, theater, which has funding, but a very important aspect, I think also, when we talk about soft power and carrying the soft power and the culture is the community. What they do is usually less visible than a festival like this with media attention, but they are the first ambassadors, they are the first practitioners, they are your first marketeers, they are your first programmers, so to speak, and they are your first audiences. And with their projects and the teachers that teach the classes, they build the base there, and they're usually very resourceful because with little means they still keep that culture going. So what I would, I'll come to that in a minute. So what worked for us, this is a small summary, international artists and community opportunities for local talent, the visibility and engaging local audiences. With education, especially, and that's where the community comes in, they do a lot of things that are usually not so high profile on a national scale, but they are very important. And what would be able to take it to the next step is, it kind of refers to what Miraji was saying, education opportunities, incidentally or more on a structural basis, with forming an academy or a school or a local place with a holistic view where the students locally can continue their studies and invest in them in that way. Soft power, we often quickly talk about means, but it's also about sharing the knowledge and the expertise in that sense, and that would also bring it to the next level. So that's actually what I put here on this presentation, on this sheet. So investing also in the community, and with the community of Indian dance, mostly would be coming from the Indian diaspora community, but there are also a lot of people that do not come from that community per se, but discover the dance and are also part of this group of allies, ambassadors, and local carriers of the form. So please don't forget them as well. And I hope that with bringing this forward, we can try to establish some form of exchange more with the different countries and India, because the resources are here, and that could be a very fruitful thing to try and accomplish. So this was my presentation. Thank you.
Just to sum it up really quickly, I think all of them have had successes in their respective areas of bringing Indian arts to their regions and making it accessible to their to the people within their community. I think some of the things ideas that have repeated through all their presentation is collaboration, where each of them has worked in combination with some local artist or a local aesthetic that the people of that area prefer. So the collaboration, like Jonathan worked with Rajan Sajan Mishra, and there was another one which Sharon presented where he worked with, Sailesh worked with, his dance form was, what is Sailesh?
He's an urban dancer.
Yeah, so he's an urban dancer, and Mira ji presented the trot, which was actually Indian content, and I know some of the dancers who are in that production. They are classically trained. They're actually quite very good Bharatnatyam as well as Kathak dancers in that production. But the presentation was accessible to the audiences within the UK because of the manner in which it was presented. So there is an integrity of the practice and the form, but it is made accessible to the local public. So collaboration is a very big thing. The next thing is that I think they all reached out to the community in their own different ways. The place that Jonathan presents is a community space, and so people who are walking by, who are even on the street, can actually see it and choose to come and sit down. And I performed there more than 8 years ago, I think, 8 or 9 years ago, and I can see that the audiences have grown to almost 5 times the size just by virtue of him being consistent in his effort. The same thing with both Sharon as well as Mira ji. They all have engaged in activities with the community, because unless you have an empathetic local audience, no one is going to come and watch or be engaged in an art and culture of another region or community. And they've all gotten into the local fabric somehow. Somehow now the festival that Jonathan has, as well as the festival in The Hague, as well as what the work that Akademi does, is become integral to that community. And that community acknowledges this as part of their local fabric. And they've been successful in their own way, and that's very important to make this a part of that community. And lastly, I think that there were some examples of how Sharon said that the films that were being shown have transitioned into the mainstream film festival. And I think films have always had that advantage, and it's slightly more difficult with especially the classical and traditional arts, and how they transition into the mainstream presentations and the mainstream theaters, and not be a separate festival of Indian dance, is, I think, what everyone is striving towards, so that people just watch it. And it's just another dance performance that they would go to, not specifically because they are interested only in Indian dance. And I think that transition is happening in many places thanks to the efforts of people like them. And so if you have any questions, I think we have just 10 minutes, 15 minutes for questions. Yes, please. I'm actually going to come.
Hi, my name is Sumati, and I represent the Swarajya magazine here. My first question is to you, Miraji. To me, assertion means that theka of 12 beats, which you showed in the first film, the 12 beats where the drums are in the background. What does assertion mean to you? Is it an Indian framework to which the world is responding, or what is it?
First of all, about the music, this film has just arrived while, so I have not supervised making of this. So it's done by one of my team members. Really They've just sort of used a sound score which we commissioned to basically cover everything else. But assertion for me is all about negotiation. And I have worked at Akademi now almost for 30 years. And 30 years of continuous negotiation with the local, ever-evolving political and cultural landscape of that country has been a huge journey for me, where kind of every 5th year or every 10th year, when the politics of the country changes, the cultural policies evolve. And within that, keeping a space and working with our agenda of my artists. See, I'm not a dancer. I work for the dance sector. So my kind of really, my base is all the artists who live in London. And London is one of the most unique city of the world, which has sort of housed Indian dance for at least last 250 years in different shapes, until kind of Uday Shankar arrived, in the 20s with professional work. So the whole journey of the dance and keeping dance sort of really at the forefront of the agenda. Of course, we are very, very organized. And another thing is that Britain is a small island. It's as big as one of Indian states. So it's easier to manage for us to sort of really communicate and work collectively. So there are about 6 or 8 organizations in the country where all the directors, and we have got kind of really an alliance where we work collectively together to look at the agenda of dance, and collectively then we sort of assert ourselves to the policy makers. I think one of the biggest sort of really situation is that, we are too many taxpayers of the Indian origin. London itself has got kind of, the second largest community is of Indian origin. So we do have a right. We do have a right. But then how do we negotiate our rights with the local ever-evolving politics and agenda, which is kind of really working towards excellence? In the morning session, you know that kind of United Kingdom is #1. So how do we negotiate? And I think my problem is that the quality of the work, what I'm presenting or what I'm getting from here, is not at par with what is happening there. So this is an ongoing battle for me to kind of really, assert with tremendous naivety, I would say. When I put up my students who have come out of some monastery, some gurukul, against the ballet dancers who have trained full-time and who have given their life and are given tremendous amount of state subsidy to excel in Royal Opera House, and then there is one poor Indian dancer, I'm presenting, and we are battling it out. True. So I come from the world which has got tremendous amount of resilience, and all of that sort of really, and my bindi certainly.
Yeah, thanks. Sir, can I ask?
Yeah, can I ask a question, please? Good evening, ma'am, this side.
Yes.
There is a lot of similarity between the dance and the food in many forms and manifestation. The way the street food takes the better slice of the a cake. What are we doing to synergize the traditional and to save the traditional dances as compared to the traditional cuisine, so that the posterity understands the nuances and the value of such dances in the years to come?
See, at my end, you have to be very good in what you do, which is classical form. So we audition and we pick up the best. So we skim the cream of the artist. So anybody who's working with Academy has to be a classically trained dancer. But then we also have, through our age, have sort of, stop being judgmental about the forms. So for me, 40,000 Indians who turned up to see our Prime Minister in our stadium when he arrived in India are as important as the dance-specific audiences who go to Sadler's Wells. Both the audiences are valid. So I have learned that there are different products, there are different, somebody might be interested in dance of Indian cinema, which is called Bollywood dancing. But if it's done well, with excellence, it makes its mark. At the same time, kind of, classical Indian dance, which is appreciated by elite, a small kind of, sector of the community. It has always happened, classical dances haven't had, thousands of followers. And as long as that is nurtured and we are continuing to invest in development of the art form rather than kind of, being obsessed with preserving what we have, preserving an imaginary history, is something which is okay. But for me, I think that the flow of the creativity is very important, and at the same time, kind of, we have communities who dance, and communities don't do dance as proficiently as, it's folk dance and it's participatory dance. And yes, what do you say?
I think I have a mic. I just want to say that we present the best, and we can present a soloist doing Odissi classical dance with no contemporary overlay, and 2,000 people will watch transfixed. So I think that great art communicates across all kinds of levels, and we don't have, and you saw the audience, it's totally mixed. So we don't put on an hour-and-a-half recital of classical Bharatnatyam. We will do 15 minutes. We know what the limit is, but at the same time, the appreciation is there for these incredibly refined artists.
Sharon, to add to what he said, after the 15 minutes, they do have also a full performance of an hour and a half and 90 minutes. That is a smaller audience. Definitely for classical dances, there are smaller audiences. But he's made it accessible to the 2,000 people who may then show up for the 90-minute show.
Sharon, can I ask you a question? Hi. So I saw Heiko there. Now, I'll tell you a little quickly. I'll just tell you, Heiko was here performing with Meeta Panditji, who's a leading vocalist. And the collaboration started because Meeta Panditji had gone to Holland, where she met Heiko. Heiko came back here. They had a wonderful, successful, huge tour. Now, he's one person who's almost a maestro. I mean, if he was here, he would be a Pandit. So, Sir was talking about reverse soft power. Now, someone like Heiko coming here, then maestros from here going performing here, how do you think it works better, faster, and works more than people going from here to there? Do you think it works better sometimes?
Better to achieve which goal then?
Soft power.
Yes, but to present the Indian culture abroad, or to present the carriers of the culture who may not necessarily be Indian but who have learned it elsewhere, bring it back.
Here the achievement would be audience, I guess?
Sorry?
Audience. Finding audience.
To find the audiences.
Yes, taking that as an achievement of soft power.
That is, I think there should be both actually. Both, because then you show the richness of the form, and he makes a different kind of translation also. He can explain in that TV program Vrije Geluiden, he would explain it differently than a local artist from here would. So by having them both, you would reach different kinds of audience. Often, it's not one or the other. You have them both as a collective. The one challenging thing that I found about this 15 minutes is that you work, part is in creating a landscape, and you have to present, actually you have to be aware of all these facets that would help into creating that landscape and carry that soft power. We only get the time to highlight one or two things, but people like Heiko and Lenneke also, Lenneke is a very good violinist, and there are some other examples of accomplished local musicians and dancers. There's a very talented classical dancer also who would be able to do exactly what he does, but for Bharatnatyam. Both these types of artists, as the artists who are more rooted here, are necessary to bring it forward and reach that wider audience.
And going back to this soft power issue, which is what the whole conference is about, I think that these dancers are ambassadors of India in the best way. And I think the immediacy of what they do on stage draws the audience in and makes India less exotic and less frightening for somebody who then wants to come here. I think that they open a pathway of the imagination and awareness, and then it feeds the whole tourism industry. You know, I thought it was very curious one time when I saw Canada doing like a Visit Toronto full-page ad, Visit Canada, and what did they have on as the picture? An Indian classical dancer.
Yeah, Latapada student, yes, yes. But I think three of us are working for Indian soft power. You know, we have different locations, but we are doing the work of the embassies and high commissions, which sort of really exist in these countries. Our work is consistent, and it has kind of really a beginning, middle, and end through a proper structure. Whereas, you know, generally in the world of diplomacy, you know, stuff keeps on moving every third year, so people have to come and start again. But there is a continuity at our end, and there's a great body of work and history what we already have.
And the best collaborations are when the diplomats understand that people like us are in the community and would be very willing and happy to serve them. So for example, the great Odissi artist Madhavi Mudgal was in Washington, and she got in touch with me, and said, I'd really like to perform in New York. There was about 6 weeks or something, so we couldn't do anything big, but I contacted the Indian Consul General, Sandeep Chakravorty, who has really thrown open the doors of this beautiful building, which is the consulate in New York, and we had about 125 people packed in there. Alistair Macaulay, the chief dance critic of the New York Times, was one of those people. He saw Arushi Mudgal, and then he saw her in a full program a month or two later, and she was one of the 2018 best dance performances of the year, according to him. I want to mention something that I heard from former Ambassador Nirupama Rao recently, that the Indian government bought a building in Washington, D.C. with the express purpose of making a cultural center. The building is empty. It has not been renovated, it has not been retrofitted, it has not been programmed. So there is a facility that someone had the bright idea to purchase a beautiful property, but the project is incomplete. So maybe if we're looking at outcomes, desired outcomes, maybe that's one of them, is to have a functioning Indian cultural center in our nation's capital in the United States.
I also would like to add to that, that High Commission of India based in London has got, last 5 years of the leadership of that has been tremendous. I was able to bring Usne Kaha Tha simply because of the outgoing High Commissioner, Yash Sena, who actually knew the story and loved the story. So it's because of his sort of really enthusiasm, I managed to reach out to the different ministries and get the whole partnership. So it's very important that while thinking about soft power, all the diplomats are also given sufficient training and are inspired to be proud of their cultural heritage. I met quite a few diplomats who are posted sort of in certain cultural positions, and then they are just embarrassed that they've got culture and they have to get on with it. So some training, some inspiration is needed. Thank you.
Thank you all so much, and we really enjoyed being here.
Thank you, dear distinguished panelists, for sharing with us your inspiring works. It's definitely a joy to see how they bring artists from our country and honor and admire them. And as Rukmini ji said, to make it accessible to the local people, fostering mutual respect and understanding. I now request Rukmini ji to felicitate the panelists. Director and Organizing Committee, Srimati Lalita Kumaramangalam, will felicitate Rukmini ji. Ladies and gentlemen, art does cross boundaries, connect lives, and makes living very meaningful. I thank each one of you for being present in this session. We'll start the next session, Art, Craft and Design, at 4 o'clock. Happy to see you again. Thank you.